explained by Paramahansa Yogananda and edited by Swami Kriyananda. Today we're on quatrain 44 of this amazing book, poem, I should say. And I want to start by playing Swami Kriyananda's singing of the quatrain and then offering Yogananda's paraphrase after that.
Stanza 44. The mighty Mahmud, the victorious Lord, that all the misbelieving and black horde of fears and sorrows that infest the soul scatters and slays with his enchanted sword. Paraphrase. The indwelling self, having once conquered the senses, extends its dominion over vast territories of consciousness. Ranged in opposition to this spiritual conquest are all the forces of delusion. Their doubt-instilling vandals, fear, sorrow, and worry strive constantly to cloud the human spirit. The warrior self, after decimating the enemy ranks with its great sword, discrimination, is hailed on all sides by the forces of light as the all-victorious Lord.
Well, this is, let's turn this off. This is a very important quatrain. It effectively asks us to pick up the sword of battle, to do battle against the delusive qualities that are all around us and within us, and to make room for the positive, the spiritual, the divine qualities. The kingdom of heaven resides within us, for those qualities to shine forth. And this quatrain explains that we have to do battle. The Bhagavad Gita explains, for instance, that we cannot become free. We cannot get out of the circle of life and death without action. Inaction simply will not work. I had an observation myself when I was pretty young that there's no such thing as neutrality. I grew up in the period, I was born right after World War II, and my family were Dutch Jewish, and so most of my family was killed during the war in the concentration camps. And so I grew up with a very visceral understanding of that war, explanations, stories told, aunts and uncles with numbers, branded into their arms, and it goes on and on. And I remember hearing and reading that there were a few countries that had been in Europe that had been neutral during the war, Switzerland being one, I believe Ireland was another. And what I came to understand very quickly is that there is no such thing as neutrality when there is a battle raging. You either side with, if you'll pardon the simplicity of it, the good guys or the bad guys, the aggressor or the defender, however you want to look at it. but you side with one or the other. There is no such thing as being in that neutral in-between place when there is something particularly evil that's going on all around us. We have to decide that we need to vanquish that. And so the spiritual life is the same. What this quatrain is saying is we can't just pretend to be the observer and the bystander. We have to take up the sword of discernment to fight the battle against the negative qualities within us by also affirming or making room for the positive qualities. The extreme examples of this are with someone who is facing addiction, for instance. Let's imagine it's alcohol addiction. We can't simply say, I want to stop, and then suddenly it goes away because we have that mental thought. We have to actually do battle by creating positive habits in our lives, by facing and understanding the foe that we're dealing with in order to be able to raise our energies to rise above it. And I'm not an expert in these things. I don't understand all the ins and outs of addiction, but I think it's a worthy example of, because we are addicted to these negative qualities, we have been animating these negative qualities in our lives for many, many, many incarnations, and the ego is rather attached to them and doesn't want to let go. And so it takes a certain amount of elbow grease to force it loose and to be able to let go of these negative, this tendency towards anger we might have, or towards jealousy, you name it. That these are the banes of our existence, and it takes effort on our part to be able to dislodge them from our heart and to make room for the natural love of our heart and the spiritual qualities, the divine qualities that reside within us, to be able to blossom, to be able to see the light of day. And so that is how this quatrain of the Rubayiat of Omar Khayyam is so important on the spiritual path. Joy to you, and we'll see you every weekday at 12 o'clock for this